Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another conversations on migration in the Caribbean, the climate justice series. So glad to be back here again, joining you guys for another episode of climate justice in the Caribbean. I mean, it's such a good time to be having this discussion, and I want to welcome every single person on board, every single person, wherever you're locked in. Come on down. We're ready to get the conversation started. We apologize for a bit of a late start. We had a bit of technical difficulties, but you know how the internet is. The internet is internet, and we like to roll with the punches, and that's how it is. Sometimes things don't work out exactly as we plan, but we're ready. We have our guests, we have our experts. My co-host is here, and we're ready to get this show started. All right. So thank you very much for joining us. I want to welcome those of you who are locked in on Facebook, YouTube. If you're locked in on LinkedIn, good day and welcome to another show. I would like to also introduce my co-host, but we'll get to that in just a little second because I have a wonderful co-host who's joining me. And we want to get started first of all by just sharing a little background and letting you guys know why we're doing this, why this is an important conversation, why you need to get in on the conversation, why you need to share this live right now. As we know, climate migration is already a reality for millions of people worldwide in one decade. That is, guys, between 2012 and 2022. 5.3 million, yes, 5.3 million new internal displacements caused by environmental disasters were registered in the Caribbean. This year, in July, hundreds of people were displaced from their homes by Hurricane Beryl in the Grenadine Islands of the Eastern Caribbean and in the southern parts of Jamaica. Many of these people are still living with their friends, they're still with families, and some are still displaced in emergency shelters. Climate change, disasters, and environmental degradation are often driving migration and displacement as a matter of necessity, not of choice. I am your host, JL Joseph, and I'd like to introduce you to my co host, Irania Yao, the head of office of Guyana and the deputy coordinator for IOM Caribbean. Good morning to you, Irania.
Good morning, and thank you, Jill. It is a pleasure to be here. And good morning, everyone, and welcome.
We're joined by
Welcome
our
to
guest.
today's. Hi, welcome to. Today is quite of a critical one. A critical discussion will happen today on climate justice. And Jill, I'm happy to be part of this conversation. I am pleased to facilitate the conversation as we believe that our youth shares the understanding that climate change is not a distant threat, but more a present reality, profoundly impacting millions of lives, like you mentioned. And the Caribbean is no stranger to experiencing the impact.
That's
And as we continue this second day of conversation, I must say that we are pleased to have two of our youth speakers. And if I can go ahead, let me introduce them because I believe they have a lot to say and
yes.
their voice needs to be heard. Let me introduce to you Kerwin Thomas, who is the president of Trinidad and Tobago chapter of Disabled Peoples International. Kerwin is a champion known for sounding his voice on the impact of climate change on people with disability. He represented Trinidad and Tobago well at the SITS conference. And next, I'll go quickly to Nicole Morrison out of the island of Dominica. Nicole is an intersectional environmentalist, a climate justice advocate, sorry, and she's the project manager who co-founded Caribbean Lives Matter, well known for inspiring youth and promoting sustainable development in Dominica. Welcome, and we are happy to have you. We look forward to today's meaningful dialogue and particularly the voices, as I mentioned, of our youth here in light of these conversations and discussions that will take place during COP29 in November as we continue to work towards actionable solutions that promote climate justice and resilience for all. Welcome. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you very much, Irenia. Welcome to our most distinguished guest, I should say. I'll get the conversation started with Kerwin. So, Corinne, you are part of a community right now that has been advocating and raising awareness of the unique vulnerabilities faced by people, individuals with disabilities. You have argued that climate change worsens existing inequalities, disproportionately impacting this demographic as their mobility and access to resources are significantly hampered during disasters. You have expressed the need for policies that are inclusive and also adaptive. In the context of the Caribbean, Corinne, how can climate justice help people with disabilities to not be trapped in areas that are highly exposed to the impacts of climate change?
All right, thank you so much, host Giles Joseph, and also co-host Ms. Urania York. Firstly, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the IOM Caribbean for this most important opportunity on conversations on migration, climate justice series. And as the host said before, my name is Kevin Thomas, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Chapter Disabled Peoples International. Firstly, climate justice means, or for me, climate justice means putting equity and human rights at the core of decision making. Decision making action on human rights, everyone needs must be met, including persons with disability. All right, just so that's to answer your question, as I said, persons with disabilities have challenges navigating mobility and the current environment in terms of access to resources. Climate justice can provide the opportunities to reduce mobility and access barriers so persons with disabilities can navigate through, even through a disaster. For example, in a disaster concerning risk planning, risk planning focus would be on ensuring shelters are also accessible for persons with disabilities. And that's definitely one of the problems that we will look at. A person with disabilities being removed from an area, and when they go to a shelter, the shelter is not conducive for a person with a disability. There aren't no ramps, there aren't no rails, there aren't any elevators, and this definitely poses a big threat for a person who goes into an area having to be lifted, having to be hoisted, and not giving that level of accessibility or mobility. All right. So the planning itself will focus on the most vulnerable, so they are not left behind, hence trapped in the areas that are being affected by the climate change. And we need to remember also that people with disabilities are increased risk of adverse impacts of climate change, including threats to their health, food security, access to water and sanitation, and livelihoods. And climate justice means addressing the adverse risk of these initiatives. And just finally, I'd just like to say that climate justice suggests that the responsibility in addressing climate change should be divided accordingly to who is contributing the most to climate change. All right, so that the problem, while addressing systematic and socioeconomic inequalities, so it's not a situation where the people that the people who contribute the most, they want to give back the least. So the people who are not contributing to climate change at all have to be affected by those that are the main contributors to climate change. I want to pass it back on to you, Ms. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Cohen. I just want to bring into the conversation Helen Glennison, who is locked in. She's here with us, so I just want to acknowledge her presence. She is the project officer, and you guys saw her yesterday. If you look at, if you came on and you viewed the conversations yesterday, and she's the project officer in migration, environment, and climate change at IOM Caribbean. She's the expert. She is the one that we look to. We look to for guidance. So I just want to acknowledge Helen. Helen, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, Jen, and yes, I'm working on migration, environment, climate change, but certainly, as Karen said, it is important that no one is left behind when it comes to disaster, when a disaster strikes, and including people with disabilities that who are one of the most vulnerable groups in that circumstances. So thank you very much for highlighting them again, and there is no enough. Need to highlight them again and again and again because they are very vulnerable when it comes to environmental disasters, but also climate change impacts. So thank you very much, Karim, for this.
Thank you so
Over.
much.
Thank you, Helen. We'll continue with Nicole. So welcome, Nicole, my fellow sister Dominican. So Nicole, you've recently been engrossed in discussions to do with climate change, climate finance, as well as climate justice. You are also from the island of Dominica, like I mentioned, which was severely devastated by Hurricane Maria in 2017. And you have roots in Montserrat, from where your family members have been scattered due to the 2010 volcanic eruption that really, and also the impact of Hurricane Hugo. These experiences obviously have had a profound impact on you as well as your family members. How do you propose that non economic loss and damage linked to displacement could be better taken into account?
Thank you so much for having me on the climate series. I was introduced earlier. My name is Nicole Wilson. I'm from the community of Dominica. I'm the national coordinator for CYEN. And again, thanks to the IOM for making spaces like that available so young climate advocates like myself can raise awareness about these pressing social issues. Not only that, I consider myself as an intersectional environmentalist. I believe that with climate change and climate related disasters, we focus so much on the economic damage and the economic loss that we fail to realize the non economic damage that it has on our society, on our culture, on our way of life, basically. So, when I started my advocacy journey, for me, I started as a creative and I was advocating through my art form. And I'm like, you know what? There are effects, side effects to these things. Like even as an advocate, we go through how would I call it? We feel like we live in a state of survival mode constantly and it weighs down on our mental health. And then I started to dig deeper and I started reading up about climate and eco anxiety and climate depression. And then I started thinking, but wait a minute, with everything that happens with these disasters, it's not just the displacement. It takes a lot to lose everything that you have, everything that you know. It's almost like a reprogramming of the mind. And we don't realize that the impact, the non economic impact on our well being and our mental health directly impact the economic side of things. Because if you're not there, if you're not there mentally, if you're not there um, um, in your correct state of mind, then how is it would you even start thinking of where do I start? Do I want to start? And even restart, I mean, and I've seen the more I dig into climate adaptation and climate resilience, um, I keep on seeing this impact more and more. And not only that, but stress or deep stress can cause autoimmune diseases. I bet a lot of people didn't know about it because I was in the Caribbean region where mental health is not taken seriously. Honestly, I think we're all aware of that. Um, and because it's not taken seriously, you're told basically to get yourself up. Situations like that make you stronger, but the stronger comes with trauma, and that is very much real. And the more I research and the more I dig into it, even before I came on this program, I there's some diseases that we didn't even know that's a link to stress, and it's cardiovascular disease. I saw after Hurricane Maria when it impacted the amount of, if we noticed it, I started to notice it and took a little data, the amount of persons who died after Hurricane Maria from hypertension. What is that linked to? Cardiovascular diseases, your pressure go up, etc. And I think we should place more emphasis on that. Not only that, but it leads to digestive problems, autoimmune diseases, weight gain because your cortisol level is high, all these different things. Not only, and that is the health part of it. Let's talk about the cultural loss. Imagine you're being raised with your grandmother who basically the way of life is you drink your tea, the tea is for this, the tea is for that. That is gone. And in my case, my last name is Mawson. My father is Antiguan. And he told, I know that that name is Monstrasian. And it came to the Caribbean from England in the search of looking for my family and reconnecting with my dad. I started to get more into it and I realized a lot of the displacement happened during the volcano. And we've been displaced throughout the Caribbean region. And not only that, but even having a conversation recently, I was so, what is the purpose of having to go to find your family, etc. I was like, think of the things, my medical, not in my medical chat, probably hereditary illnesses that I might have in my system. Something happens to me later on, or I have kids later on in life, and these weird illnesses are coming about, and I have no idea where it comes from. I don't know my family history. I don't know my family medical history. So the impact of displacement in the Caribbean region due to climate related disasters or just disasters on a whole, it has its cultural losses, its psychological. I believe we need stronger psychological support system. Not only that, but also start with community-led solutions to actually um, find solutions to these social issues and create more awareness and create this space for healing after the I mean dealing with climate change in itself is already a lot. So let's try not to make things worse than of than it really is.
Thank you very much, Nicole, for sharing that with us. I want to bring back Irena on here with us. And one of the things that Nicole said, really struck me is, all of the autoimmune diseases and all of the different things that happen to you during, like, I developed psoriasis, during a natural, following a disaster, right? Like, it just came out of nowhere, and it has not left me ever since, and I have found ways to manage it, but I don't have psoriasis in my family lineage, So how does that play out? And obviously, I found out through therapy that it was stress related. And I want to bring you in on the conversation so you can kind of culminate or sum up, what these two panelists have spoken about here today.
Thank you, Jill. I've heard mention to loss, physical loss, but I also heard culturally people lose, what the things that they should be holding on to and to go and to pass on to their next generations. I've also heard the impact on psychosocial being of the person. This is crucial. This is very much an issue that needs to be addressed. But I want to dive a little bit more deeper, outside of the, leaving no one behind, but to shift up the conversation a bit so that we can help to send a clearer message to stakeholders at COP29, right? What can be done to ensure that small island developing states and their most vulnerable populations be sufficiently prepared and can develop national and community resilience to the changing climate?
All right, we'll give that one. Let's get Cohen to touch on that.
All right, thank you so much again for that question. I think that after coming out from the CIS conference in Antigua and Barbuda, I mean, first time I visited then the lovely island of Antigua and Barbuda, there were a lot of tension. I mean, I think that the air was really rare. A lot of persons were there having discussions as it relates to climate change and the effects of climate change, especially in the small island developmental states. I think that was some months ago. And I think even as you mentioned, going into COP29, I think that the focus should be less talk and more action. I think that the time is now that yes, we understand that the direction, we understand what are the impacts of climate change and the effects of climate change. But I think that we need to put our money where our mouth is. And I will suggest that people start to invest in the Caribbean, understanding that we are in the belt of receiving hurricanes, natural disasters, more so for persons with disabilities who are the most vulnerable in our society. And if we definitely care about the most vulnerable, the people that cannot do for themselves, at least some of them, then we should definitely put our money where our mouth is. And I would just that would be something that we get whoever is going to COP29 will open up their voices as bold as possible and tell the decision makers, the people who have been contributing negatively to climate and climate change, that they themselves have a responsibility to the rest of the Caribbean and people, more so persons with disabilities, so that we could be able to make the changes that are necessary.
Thank you very much, Cohen. How about you, Nicole? Oh, you're on mute. Let's get you off. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm currently in the UK right now, and I have been here for a week of discussion at the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. And basically, I was here as a climate advocate to push the importance of imposing a shipping levy on shipping companies at 150 USD per ton for the emissions that they put into the environment for greenhouse gas. And while there, I took the opportunity basically not only to speak out for my island, but also partner with Six Pack who proposed these proposals. And my stance on this has been for basically repeating what I've been repeating for the past week and a half, and I've been saying the Caribbean region is sitting in the hot seat of the hurricane belt.
Yeah.
That is something that we know. We contribute less than 3% to greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere, yet still we on the front line of the climate crisis. It is unfair for us, the Caribbean region, and also for the Pacific Islands as well, to be facing the repercussions and the direct impact of the climate crisis, while the big polluters and the global north profit from it and they contribute more to the environment. For me, my stance is tax them. Like, pay for the damages that you have, like pay for the damages that you are causing, and we are the ones who's paying for it. I am a strong advocate for strengthening our climate adaptation plan because as much as we're trying to get back to the 1.5, it is starting to look more bleak and more bleak. We need to focus on more adaptation than mitigation about this time. And even as I was focusing on the mental health and the mental health impact, after a climate after a disaster, I feel like there should be ecotherapy for people, reconnecting them back to the earth. And no, it's not the earth that is your enemy, but it's these big polluters. Not only that, but funds coming from the global shipping levy or levies as such, not only just the shipping department, but everything else the global north do that we even buy off, etc. I feel like there should be funds and taxes in place to fund sustainable projects. We're tapping in Dominica into the geothermal energy that will bring down emissions and bring down decarbonize the shipping, decarbonize not only shipping but even our way of life in Dominica and bring our emissions down to like net zero. And the aim is to get to that part in 2050. So for me, I think it starts them. We needed to start fighting before we're late. Right now, drastic action needs to be taken place. If they don't want to listen to us, touch their pocket. That is one way of making people listen. I for real. If you don't want to listen to me, talk to you. Then oh, you're forced to listen. So going into COP, my um my message to them is focus on adaptation, fund sustainable um solutions, renewable energy. These are how many ways that we can put these funds into. That is what my focus will be. And let's not forget the mental impact that it has on people as well.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I want to bring Helen into the conversation. Nicole says tax them, and I feel like that goes down all of like throughout the entire line because if you look at how we're placed in the Caribbean during the hurricane season, cruise ships we don't see them at all. We don't see them at all, and they get so excited and pumped when October comes around for them to return back to our shores, which is causing pollution, and I don't feel like the Caribbean islands get enough. I'm leaning towards Nicole and her a solution to tax them. What would you like to share, Helen, based on that?
Thank you very much, Nika. Thank you very much, Karine, for all what you're doing today. And actually, I think with yesterday's guest, we have already strong recommendations for COP29 around climate finance, around loss and damage, with the loss and damage fund that we are about to hopefully operationalize. So, and also inclusivity of marginalized communities, including them more, such as people with disabilities, but also LGBTQ plus communities, and elderly women, and etc. So I think we are on our way. We are on our way to 90, and thank you very much for your voice as youth, because we are we are the future. So I think we need to fight more, and thank you for that, as youth leaders, as youth voice, I would say, and climate voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you, and Arena. I let you have the final word.
Sure. Joe, Helen, I think we've heard compelling perspectives from our esteemed speakers, Kevin and Nicole, and whose dedication to advocating for the most vulnerable among us is truly inspiring. I think, Corinne, you have highlighted much of the challenges faced by individuals with disabilities in the context of climate change, and we understand that this is crucial. Nicole, your efforts in promoting sustainability and resilience in Dominica really serves as a beacon of hope and an action for many. It is clear that the path to climate justice really requires collective efforts and innovative solutions, and very much unwavering commitments, not only from, I want to say, government, but I think also communities. We all have a role to play. So the voices of our youth, as well as those of our most vulnerable populations, it must be at the forefront of the conversations, especially as we approach COP29. I want to say really thank you for your dedication, and let's continue to work together towards a more just and sustainable world. Thank you
very much, Arena. I want to say thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you to you, Cohen Bombers, out of Trinidad and Tobago, TNT, Trinity Born. And thank you very much to Nicole Morrison out of Dominica, and both of you continue the good work that you are doing. Your advocacy work, it really means a lot. And thanks to Helen for dropping in to talk with us, to hang out with us today. And to you, all of you, the viewers, the listeners, wherever you are locked in, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. I saw a lot of conversations coming through. Like we had conversations like this where people are sharing that they noticed in SVG the impacts on the severely elderly people. So people were chiming in. Folks were saying things like, really, really great shares again. Thank you, IOM Caribbean, for hosting this series. So this is what some of the users who are viewing right now are saying. We want to encourage you guys to share these videos, because this is how the message can move. This is how the message can get to the people. I mean, we'll do our part in ensuring that it lands where it needs to land, but you can amplify it. And that's what we want you to do. We want you to share every single one of the video whenever you come on. You could have been listening live, you could have come on later on, you could be looking to a share or reshare, We encourage you to share these conversations because this is very important for us as Caribbean people. I want to encourage you to log in tomorrow because the conversation continues. Tomorrow we continue the climate justice series. We have 3 new guests who are going to be joining us from 3 new islands, 3 different countries. And I want to encourage you guys to be locked in. Come on, follow us on IOM Caribbean, follow on my pages, follow every single one of the participants who will be resharing as well. And thank you again for joining us for another climate justice series. I'm JL Joseph, and I will be back tomorrow. New guest, new co-host. Thanks, Serena, for joining us. And have
Thank
yourself
you
a
for
great
having
day.
me.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.